November 27, 2020. A black armored Nissan Tina cuts through the biting cold of a desolate mountain highway in Absard, 40 miles east of Tehran. Inside sits a man whose mind holds the absolute key to the Middle East's balance of power. He is surrounded by an elite detachment of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Every route is sanitized, every threat neutralized. How, then, does a convoy shielded by the most paranoid security apparatus in the state drive directly into a flawlessly orchestrated execution? Who pulled the trigger when there was no human shooter within 1,000 miles? The answer lies hidden in a 1-ton robotic apparatus, a Belgian-made heavy machine gun, and a terrifying leap in the evolution of covert warfare. This was not merely an assassination. It was the absolute dawn of algorithmic execution. For decades, Brigadier General Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was a phantom. To the Iranian public, he was completely invisible, his name deliberately erased from university catalogs and state media. But deep within the classified archives of the CIA and the International Atomic Energy Agency, Fakhrizadeh was recognized as the undisputed architect of the Islamic Republic's nuclear ambitions. He was the director of Project Ahmad, the clandestine initiative tasked with designing and constructing a functional nuclear warhead. Even when international pressure ostensibly forced the program underground in 2003, Fakhrizadeh never stopped. He merely fractured his research into innocuous-sounding entities, like the Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research, or SPND, and the Green Salt Project. He mastered uranium enrichment to weapons-grade levels. He designed implosion detonation mechanisms. He was, to the intelligence services of the West and Israel, the most dangerous man alive. The hunt for the architect spanned nearly 2 decades. By 2018, the Shadow War reached a tipping point. In a daring midnight raid in southern Tehran, Mossad operatives breached a classified warehouse and extracted half a ton of documents. They smuggled 50,000 pages and over 160 digital files out of the country. When Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stood before the world to reveal the stolen archive, he explicitly pointed to the architect's ongoing work. He issued a chilling, singular directive to the international community. Remember that name, Fakhrizadeh. That public identification was not a warning. It was a death sentence. Executing that sentence, however, required navigating an impossible geopolitical and tactical labyrinth. Fakhrizadeh was protected by the elite Ansar unit of the Revolutionary Guard. His movements were randomized, his convoys fortified, his personal security detail hypervigilant after a string of mysterious assassinations that had already claimed the lives of 5 other Iranian nuclear scientists. Traditional covert methods were obsolete. A car bomb would risk catastrophic collateral damage. A drone strike would trigger an immediate, devastating regional war. A deployed sniper team would almost certainly be captured or killed on Iranian soil. The mandate from Mossad Director Yossi Cohen was unprecedented. Eliminate the target with 0 operational footprint. No extraction plan because there would be no human operatives to extract. The solution materialized in the secretive testing grounds of the Negev Desert. Israeli defense engineers designed an autonomous assassination system that merged robotics, satellite telecommunications, and advanced artificial intelligence. The physical core was a modified 7.62mm FN MAG belt-fed machine gun, paired with a sophisticated robotic platform akin to the Escribano Sentinel-20. But a gun is only as effective as its operator. The true breakthrough was the algorithmic brain controlling the barrel. The system was equipped with 4 high-resolution cameras boasting 50 times optical zoom, 2 thermal sensors, laser rangefinders, and an anemometer to gauge wind speed. It was programmed to account for the speed of a moving vehicle, the curvature of the earth, the temperature of the air, and the specific ballistic recoil of every single shot. Getting a 1-ton, state-of-the-art robotic weapon into the heart of the Islamic Republic required an intelligence masterclass. The apparatus was meticulously broken down into 20 distinct modules. Smugglers, unaware of the lethal cargo they carried, moved the components disguised as agricultural equipment and industrial machinery across the porous 700-kilometer border with Azerbaijan. Piece by piece, the hardware arrived at a secure safe house in Tehran. There, A covert infiltration team of technicians painstakingly reassembled the machine. They mounted it in the bed of an unremarkable blue Nissan pickup truck, concealing the deadly payload beneath a simple tarpaulin and construction debris. They rigged the vehicle with heavy explosives for self-destruction. And then the human element vanished. The operatives left the country, leaving behind a digital ghost waiting to be awakened. By late November 2020, the geopolitical clock was rapidly running out. In Washington, Donald Trump had lost the presidential election, and the incoming Biden administration promised to restore the Iran nuclear deal. For Israel, this represented a closing window. A successful strike now would not only decapitate the nuclear program, but potentially provoke an Iranian retaliation that could permanently derail any diplomatic reconciliation. The timing had to be immediate. The target had to be Fakhrizadeh. Electronic surveillance and intercepted communications revealed a fatal flaw in the architect's armor. Every Friday, Fakhrizadeh left the suffocating smog of Tehran for his weekend retreat in the mountain resort town of Absard. It was a routine, and in the world of espionage, routine is fatal. On a specific stretch of rural highway, 3 kilometers west of Absard, the convoy was forced to slow down. There were no buildings, no cross streets, just an open expanse of asphalt. It was the perfect kill zone. Days before the hit, the blue Nissan pickup was abandoned on the elevated shoulder of this exact road. To passing motorists, it was just another broken-down work truck. But beneath the tarp, the machine was quietly conserving its battery, its thermal eyes fixed on the horizon, waiting for a signal from a command center over 1,000 miles away. The morning of November 27th was cold and clear. Fakhrizadeh ignored the specific warnings of Iranian intelligence. He insisted on driving his own vehicle, a black Nissan Tina, rather than sitting in the heavily armored transport driven by his guards. His wife sat beside him. The 3-vehicle convoy approached the Absard highway at exactly 1:30 in the afternoon. Deep in a secure bunker beneath Tel Aviv, satellite links hummed to life. The latency between Israel and the desolate Iranian road was engineered to be less than 1.5 seconds. Operators watched the encrypted video feed as the lead security vehicle accelerated forward to secure the entrance to the town, momentarily fracturing the convoy. The target was isolated. The artificial intelligence took command. Operating at 60 frames per second, the facial recognition software scanned the approaching vehicle. It penetrated the glare of the windshield, mapping the biometrics of the driver against thousands of reference images. It recognized the jawline, the set of the shoulders, the exact distance between the eyes. At 100 meters, the AI achieved a 99.8% confidence lock. The wind was blowing from the northeast at 12 kilometers per hour. The ambient temperature was 14 degrees Celsius. The vehicle was traveling at 65 kilometers per hour. The algorithm calculated the necessary adjustments in milliseconds. The command from Tel Aviv was absolute: execute. The tarp blew back. The FNMAG unleashed its first volley. A burst of 7.62 millimeter rounds tore through the biting mountain air. The AI intentionally targeted the laminated bulletproof glass of the windshield, striking it with such concentrated kinetic force that the armor began to spiderweb and crack. Fakhrizadeh, perhaps believing he had struck debris or was experiencing engine failure, made the final, fatal mistake of his life. He ordered the car to stop. He opened the door and stepped out onto the asphalt. He was looking for a sniper. He was looking for a flash of movement on the hills. But he was looking for a human, and there was no human to be found. The instant his foot touched the ground, the camera zoomed and refocused. The algorithmic brain recalculated his stationary position. 3 more bullets, fired with mathematical perfection, struck the architect in the shoulder and the spine. He collapsed against the side of the car, his white shirt blossoming with dark blood. His wife leapt from the passenger seat, screaming, throwing herself toward her husband. The robotic gun remained silent. The artificial intelligence had actively discriminated between the targets, recognizing her as a non-combatant. It held its fire. 0 collateral damage. As the trailing security guards poured from their vehicles, wildly firing their weapons into the empty hills and desperately searching for an invisible enemy. The blue pickup truck detonated. A shaped explosive charge ripped through the robotic platform, instantly vaporizing the AI computer, the satellite uplink, and the weapon itself. The blast sent fragments scattering across 100 meters, killing one guard and effectively erasing the physical evidence of the most sophisticated assassination in modern history. The entire engagement, from the first shot to the destruction of the evidence, lasted precisely 42 seconds. 13 bullets were fired. Every single one found its mark or served its exact tactical purpose. Fakhrizadeh was bleeding out on the rural highway. Frantic guards loaded him into an escort vehicle and raced toward a medical facility. He was airlifted to Mustafa Khomeini Hospital, but the trauma was too catastrophic. At 2:15 in the afternoon, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the irreplaceable mind behind Iran's nuclear shadow state, was pronounced dead. The immediate aftermath was a chaotic maze of Iranian intelligence failures. State media initially reported a fierce gun battle with a hit squad. They claimed terrorists had been killed or captured. It was a desperate narrative deployed to mask the profound humiliation of their security apparatus. But as forensic investigators scoured the melted metal and unrecoverable electronics of the destroyed pickup truck, the terrifying truth emerged. There were no discarded shell casings to trace. There were no getaway vehicles. There were no footprints. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard was forced to admit the impossible. Their most prized asset had been eliminated on home soil by a machine. The enemy had slipped past every barrier without ever crossing the border. The psychological shockwave of the Absard operation resonated far beyond the Iranian nuclear program. It decimated the morale of the research community. Scientists demanded impossible security guarantees. Recruitment stalled. The knowledge gap left by Fakhrizadeh's death set the weapons program back by years. But the true legacy of that cold November afternoon extends far beyond the Middle East. It represents a fundamental, irreversible paradigm shift in the history of espionage and warfare. We have entered an era where the heavy burden of the kill chain is offloaded to silicon and servos, where assassins do not breathe, do not hesitate, and leave no fingerprints, where an encrypted signal can cross a continent in less than a second to end a life with terrifying, calculated perfection. As nations race to develop their own algorithmic snipers and autonomous swarms, the operation on the Absard highway stands as a grim milestone. What happens when the moral friction of taking a human life is completely removed from the battlefield? What happens when artificial intelligence is no longer just identifying the target, but is given the absolute authority to decide who lives and who dies? We are no longer waiting for the future of automated warfare. We are already living in its crosshairs.